estamos agora a olhar para.
So let's take a look at the infrastructures, telecommunication infrastructures role in the digital transformation that we've mentioned quite often during these 2 days. It happens at quick speed. It has to be followed, and we're going to be discussing what are the challenges, what has been its developments. That is with João Moura, Paulo Favaro, and Pedro Rocha, that I'd like to thank their presence. João, I'm going to start by you. And these companies, your three companies, have been have taken part quite often in APDC. What year was it for the business? Good afternoon, Carolina. I'd like to thank APDC and Rogério the invitation to participate in and congratulate APDC for its 40th birthday. Carolina, 2023 was a transformation year and that of growth. We ended an 8-year cycle where we became one of the most important operators of those infrastructures. Over 40 transactions in 12 countries where we invested 40 billion euros and more than 100,000 sites that cover 250 million Europeans. After this growth period, we want to consolidate our operations and focus on the organic growth with our customers. Now, how can it happen? By building new infrastructures, how this organic growth can occur, and through making the existing infrastructures profitable. In 2023, we added more than 100 new infrastructures in Portugal. At this moment, 6,300 or so infrastructures where all operators can install their equipment. These are antennas, radios, transmission equipment, part of the operator's network. It's a component. So our business enables to share these infrastructures by all operators. You spoke about making profitable and new constructions. Where do you need to fulfill these two needs? Making it profitable and new construction in different places. First of all, we need new construction because not all locations have infrastructures. Portugal faces a challenge in social cohesion when we compare Portugal to the EU ranking. We have mismatches between the urban and rural means 80%. Also, we're lagging behind in digital literacy. We're below the average. So we need more infrastructures where they don't exist to provide more coverage. Is it because of lack of availability, paperwork, bureaucracy? Well, it happens because regions where we have few customers and where we have a more dispersed population, making profitable these infrastructure does not happen immediately, but companies like Silex and those representing them can help because we can build infrastructure, share the costs between the operators, and these costs result in more efficient projects for the operators to be able to cover more the population. This covers 200,000 people, 2,000 customers per site. And it has a great impact from infrastructures. From these infrastructures, a greater profitability. So we support on the grid acquired was from Meo and Noj. We have an agreement building new infrastructures and using the existing ones. So grids are complementary and it's possible to make them more advantageous. And this allows for an impact, the financial impact that I've just mentioned, reduce costs for the operator, more capacity to invest in a larger grid to cover more customers, time to market impact. By using these infrastructures, we're able to make available more quickly these services, and also a sustainability impact. And why? Because by reusing infrastructures, we save carbon emission not only associated to the material, but maintenance of decades, these infrastructures. And looking at this year and beginning of next year, Paul, do you also take a look at 2024? Beginning of 2025, not 2023, as I mentioned earlier, with excitement in his business sector. Yes. And I'd like to thank APDC for the invitation. I'm very pleased to participate in the Congress. And also, I'd like to congratulate APDC for its anniversary. It's quite an excitement. Last year, it was a good year. It was a year that followed the same track. It was created in 2020, and basically in 2024, 2025, we'll continue on expanding our asset portfolio, which we're managing, and we'll continue on adding new infrastructures. We've been following a more or less similar path than what was referred to by João, and it's normal. Yes, we're speaking about the same sector. And last year, we added more than 100 infrastructures, and this year we will continue on with this direction, and we'll achieve more coverage that fits in within the 5G context. We'll speak more in detail about these applications. I don't know if you want to conclude, Paulo. Have you finished? The excitement is the same. And we're very pleased with our portfolio, with the projects included in our portfolio, and we're focusing on national delivery so as to add value to our customers. Concerning fiber, considering the fiber, where does it stand this year and next year? Good afternoon, and I'd like to thank APDC for being present in this debate on infrastructure. Fast fiber its global objective is to be a key fiber operator, and this is what we seek every day, to be open, neutral to all retail operators that can use this grid in commercial conditions, allowing them to compete in the retail market. After having said this, between 2023 and 2024, what we did was to increase the range of services provided to other operators. So we can say that this year went well, and we hope that the rest of 2024 will also accompany that growth. And during 2023, beginning of 2024, we've made available to operators several infrastructures, significant ones, to connect stations, infrastructures, Selvex and Vantage, making available this fiber to other operators. We've also made available the FTH to an operator be competitive in that region, which is significant. And also what we expect in relation to next year is to increase the relationship we have with other operators, to strengthen our relationship. We seek to be a fiber infrastructure at a national level. So between 2022 2023, since the existence of fast fiber in 2020, we've increased the coverage, increased the coverage to 1.5 million houses. So we've grown in 4 years 20%. It's very significant, taking into account the investment and effort made by Fast Fiber during these 4 years. More than 400 million euros that we invested in installation, development, operations, and maintenance. Will it be difficult to maintain that speed? Well, there is a limit. Of course, there is a limit because of the country's size. And there's something that needs to be said. First of all, and conditions have to be established so that we can establish and install fibers in other areas which still are missing. The government launched call a call for white zones. There will be a need for constant fiber. A need to densify fiber traffic will increase more and more. So, nor the country, no one will leave that area, but there's still a lot to be done, many constraints that we'll have to tackle and overcome. Let's speak about what has to be done. Let me know your opinion on 5G coverage obligation. The first target was achieved in December 2023. 75% of municipalities. What is the forecast to meet the second target, which is 90% of the population by December 2025? Now, this forecast is for 2025. There's still 2 years to go. An intermediate target for 2024 for some. Paris is not of low density, but in low density municipalities. So the operators are developing their grid to meet coverage obligation, but the 5G process in Portugal is quite advanced. So indeed, we were lagging behind in the kickoff, in the start, and the fiber companies gave relevant support to recover this delay. So we ended 2023, according to Anacom data, with more than 8,900 stations with 5G. With a total of 15,000 in the country, more than half with 5G, and a big coverage percentage. So the operators have announced more than 90%, typically in lesser dense areas. So we've recovered this lagging behind. 5Gs means adapting infrastructures to support 5G, the operators 5G, which are our customers. In sites where there's no 5G, we need to build new infrastructures to address these obligations. And in part, we'll be able to use some existing infrastructure where there's an operator to integrate new operators. When you were speaking about new construction, where you're contemplating these new area, these new constructions are in low density regions. When we started this activity, we built more than 790 sites built in low medium size densities. Regions where there was no coverage, and that strengthened the capacity that many Portuguese could have service and 5G. For 2024, we're going to continue on building infrastructures. We have a 200 infrastructure plan, double what we had last year. We're going to invest more than 100 million euros this year, especially in these new infrastructure, but to continue to increase the 5G infrastructures and to include more customers in these infrastructure. In addition to having Meo and Notch as clients, we also support a part of Vodafone according to the sharing agreement that exists between Vodafone. So we work with all operators, and the 5G installed becomes available through different operators.
In terms of the implementation of 5G, do you see the implementation of 5G with the same optimism? Yes, I agree with what João says. I subscribe to that. And I agree that there are two aspects. The first aspect is the existing sites that have to be upgraded. And there was a great deal of work done last year. And so I think there were about 1,000 sites were upgraded. And we place new 5G equipment, and there's another aspect is the new sites that are being built. I think that the first aspect is the business as usual aspect, that is this type of operators basically designed to work with the economy of scale with volumes. And the second aspect has got to do with the new sites, and which is a little bit different, and especially it's got to do with nature of the sites which are being built, since we are talking about remote areas. And so the optimism exists, and so we've already delivered more than over 100, 130, 140 infrastructures over the last 2 months, but it wasn't easy. No way was easy. And we have still got a number to deliver until the end of 2025. And we've learned a lot. We've had a very brutal learning curve during 2023. That's why I set an optimism for the final stretch of this 5G, but still there are difficulties, especially the way we have to interact with all the entities that are involved in the process, and so there will be improvements. I don't know whether we're going to talk about this later, but I think that there are conditions for all the players in the system to improve the conditions to ensure that the end customers, the operators, manage to obtain the infrastructures that they need at the right time, or in due time. And so in the case of fiber, and David was talking about the challenges a while ago, fiber has to accompany all this that João and Paulo were talking about. Is it challenging? Is it more challenging? No, it's equally challenging. So the obligations that 5G is going to have in reality are obligations for more remote areas, more rural, more dispersed, where the deployment of a fiber network for all these networks and clients is going to be more expensive. And so that is why it is a challenge, not only because of the fact that they're more rural, and so into operational terms, it's going to be more challenging because the distances are greater. And in terms of profitability, there's a challenge. When we went to fiber to the basic stations and to give service to the client, we expect we expect a certain profitability. But if there's no profitability, because the great population, I mean, the percent of the country that the houses are sort of second houses or empty houses, and sometimes there's no population practically, and so the profitability of the business is a little bit more difficult to obtain. And following what Paulo said, the use of appropriate apt infrastructures for the fiber cables to get to these areas should be enhanced. And so this takes a certain while, and this is essential not only for 5G, but for the my areas. and this has already been lodged by the government, if we don't have a number of processes simplified in terms of licensing and authorizing councils that are certain or licenses from certain entities that are obliged to place the fiber cables. If the processes aren't simplified from the entities that have these infrastructures in conditions which are conditions that can give us profitability. And so if we don't have this, then we're only with great difficulty will we manage to place the fiber in within time limits. And of course, there has to be a transparency of information, and there hasn't there been with the government. And so just following up what's already been mentioned, the European Parliament and the Council have made a regulation which is called Gigabit for the Structure Act. I believe the gentleman said well, there's a number of rules are established for the for providing apt infrastructures for telecommunications operators. It was published on the 29th of April. And this is a regulation for all countries globally. Portugal is much more advanced than the other countries in the European Union in relation to this because we already had legislation which established the use of these apt infrastructures for telecommunication companies. But what still has to be done and was never done was to densify and implement these measures. Nowadays, this information exists, but nowadays this information is not enough. Meaning, we have an information system where each one of the operators can analyze the apt infrastructures, but it's not updated, for example. Not all the entities report the infrastructures that are apt for this the passage and the viability of this information. When we go on the ground, we can see that there is there are interruptions. So, what's stopping the development of the why areas? Well, why is the network not being implemented? What's stopping it from being implemented? Well, in order to fast fiber can do this, but we have to we want simplification of these processes from the government and the regulator that hasn't been this hasn't existed in this rank zone. So I don't know whether it was Jean who was talking about this. So do you share what Pedro says? Do you agree? What is sort of stopping while these prevented these areas not getting fiber? Well, there's economic profitability. The networks, 5G, for example, are being developed with 100% private investment. And so, as we know, there is no, the PRR does not allocate funds for this coverage. And so the shared infrastructures and the modules that we managed to construct help reduce costs and bring a greater coverage to these places. Secondly, Pedro mentioned that we are quite anxious to hear the results of this regulation. Many of these regulations are advanced, but the Gigabit Infrastructure Act expects to give all the citizens in Europe 5G. And so there'll be regulations on the rights of passage in public and private land. And so there's going to be regulations which is public buildings, which is going to allow us to implement these stations. Yeah, but it's going to introduce, but this is already possible to do, or we have to wait. Well, the regulation was improved at the end of April. It's 18 months for it to be implemented. So at the end of 2025, we'll have this regulation in force. But our necessity is going to continue to be developed. I think we have a positive way forward. and to be able to benefit from this whole project. You see this in Advantage Towers, yeah? Advantage Towers. Yes, we have the expectations, and it is in line with the second goal of 5G. We have to take advantage of the correct implementation of this regulation. I would also like to add that what is being said is that countries that are part of the European Union are encouraged to accelerate the processes, the licensing processes, responses to entities that are involved in the construction process. And this happens especially in these areas. The licensing for the construction of the site begins with the councils, but we have to have more interactions with other entities. For example, the Institute of the Civil Aviation, the conservation forests, and is there proactivity back of the companies or not? There's no opening, no openness rather, to get to these entities. Is it difficult to have this interaction, this cooperation? And so there's certain openness by the companies, by our clients. But obviously, it's always good to address the topic from the point of view of the ecosystem. But once again, as Pedro was saying, we have to have a coordination, central coordination for this process to move forward. And essentially, with this regulation, we hope that this fast track can be implemented for all of us to take advantage of it. And so the difficulties are the same. Well, Pedro, you've been very clear in terms of. Can I just say something? Yes, very quickly. Jean said that the regulation has got 18 months to be applied, but the deadlines that we have for 5G and for the deployment fiber that we want in remote areas, especially, can't be applied in 18 months. So it'd be a very good idea if it was the implementation was hurried up. We can't wait 18 months because 2025 could have much more difficulties, many more difficulties to make the implementation of the fiber network and the aerials for 5G. In practical terms, we have to make a great effort on the part of our companies to deliver services, and we have to, and we don't know whether we can reach the delays.
We know how relevant it is, and what has AI brought to this operation regarding fiber? It has brought the operational part in the fiber grid deployment. It's learning. We have operational processes which are complex from where we design the project, implementation, tests, and monitoring. AI allows to know a priori the different fiber deployment typologies, adapt them, and be speedy to save costs and resources and to provide a better quality service to our customers. Are there only advantages? Yes, investment as well. We were speaking about the AI's advantages. So you need to invest in the process, train people in that process, which often is not easy. We have an outsourcing outsourcing of direct, indirect employees, workers in our grid, and we need to invest in their training so that they can correctly use the AI tools so that we're able to install, operate, and maintain the fiber grid or network. João, AI has been it has been a transforming network. AI is a disruptive factor with a wow factor. Very quickly, ChatGPT had 1.5 million users a day, and the speed of that technology will be very rapid and very disruptive, will change how to work rapidly. I compare this revolution with that of the smartphone one and the disruption and with our boxes to view last week's programs, TV shows. So companies have to experiment. We started that activity in 2018, and in 2019, we launched 2 pilots that allowed us to understand the potentials of this technology. For instance, 3D recognition of some of our towers. It was possible to create a digital twin of our infrastructure, a digital replica of our 3D infrastructure. This allows for registration to identify the components of that infrastructure. It also allows to it identifies the forecast of maintenance if the towers have a beginning of corrosion, and so that we can take action. So it all allows to identify problems and the company to anticipate. Also, there was a pilot on the reading of our contract site contracts, and these tools allow to identify for a database, compare the beginning of a contract and amount of lease. It's and the technology is not yet. We're not yet able to say that we're efficient, but when this revolution will happen, it will be huge. So we need to continue on investing of the contribution of communication networks in AI. 5G will be very important. Not only will it give speed, but smaller latency to the grid. Communication will be quicker, and investment. American big techs are investing in AI. Also, hardware companies are doing it, are investing in AI. And surely enough, there's going to be a huge revolution, and we need to be prepared, to be ready. How have you felt this revolution, this AI revolution? Have you felt it? We have quite a lot of ideas. Some pilots have been conducted, as João mentioned. The functional areas more impacted by AI are those areas that he mentioned. All that relates to larger volumes have a good match with AI to be used to trigger more tasks quickly. The legal aspect, finding clauses in the contract guaranteeing the lease contracts we have with others, and how are we preparing the company? It's important to have a good strategy from IT development and to give a follow-up of what was being said, to establish competency centers in the country, which I think is good. This is what we're working on, and we're working on an IT development center providing services where advantage is operating. And with such, basically, these skills, competencies that are being created will deal with the development of these tools, technologies, so that all operations can harness and work in a more flexible and effective way. Pedro, you have less than 2 minutes to answer this question. Last year, Pedro, you mentioned in this Congress the fragility of some infrastructures preventing companies to invest in Portugal, frailty aspects. It hasn't changed. Has it changed? No, it hasn't changed. We hope that in reality that these changes, that this regulation will allow us to follow that path, be it trampoline, but there's still some work to be carried out because what's missing is the opening conditions to install the fibers, infrastructure to be resilient enough to provide a service provide a quality service that the larger data competitors international want. They don't want fiber placed in infrastructure in aerial with a resilience level which is more significant.
And Portugal has had some recent examples as well of the destruction of these infrastructures. Well, and natural calamities, these infrastructures are subject to this. I mean, and so what we try to do is, and what we'd like to do, and Fast Fiber has a program, and there's been a migration from fibers in the air to pipelines. And so we have to invest in these pipelines. So we stuck to the time. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, everybody, for your presence. And it was a pleasure. And I wish you the best of luck for the infrastructure of telecommunications in the country. Thank you very much.